I would even cancel a conversation with our next guest, William Russell.
Hey.
He is a partner at Ballard Partners. He has worked extensively in Republican politics in Mississippi. And, oh, by the way, William knows as well as anybody that there is no risk of him being canceled because of Penny Thompson being on this show. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Richard. Thanks for having me again.
Man, what a week. What a week across the country. What a week in Washington, D.C. Give us a sense of what the last 7-8 days have been like since Charlie Kirk was shot Wednesday of last week. We're now into Thursday morning. And, I mean, a week ago right now, we were talking about it. We were remembering the anniversary, the 24-year anniversary of September 11th. We were trying to make sense of the Charlie Kirk story, and here we are a week later with some time to digest it. Does it make any more sense now than it did?
Oh boy. There's a lot of sadness in this city. Obviously, Charlie Kirk was father, a husband, a friend of mine, and he was a titan. He was a giant in this conservative movement, in this MAGA movement. Now, MAGA is a pliable term. MAGA means something different to every person that you ask. But for him, he was representative of a group of people who felt like they didn't have a voice. And it's kind of weird. And I think that a lot of my friends here in DC who followed Charlie Kirk like I did, kind of hold this position that an interesting paradox arises when in Charlie's death, the point was to silence him, but his voice, as we've seen just on social media, and other influencers who have stepped up, it's only going to get louder, which is a great way to honor him in his death, is to continue on, because at the end of the day, his message wasn't a divisive one. It was love God, have kids. It's very simple. He was above all a Christian, and he stood for the nuclear family. He stood for kind of having some morality in our culture, which when you get to the crux of it, it's a heart issue that we're talking about with American culture right now. I mean, the fact that we've got people celebrating this in a vile way, and have been for several days now without stop. I mean, we're seeing people like who out there thinks it's okay to see someone, and not a politician, this is not a dictatorial leader, this is not someone who's a mass criminal, get executed in such a public way that we as Americans can all see from the palm of our hand, and then think, yeah, this is the answer to the question, and celebrate that. It's devoid of any sort of moral compass.
William, there's so many directions I'd like to go, but we spent some time yesterday talking about the way this news is being consumed, the way it's being distributed, and also this seeming race to fill the void left by Charlie Kirk. And I'm curious, in D.C., how much air is the conspiracy theory side of this story getting? I mean, I think most of us, look at this and go, this is pretty straightforward. Like, you have a suspect, there's evidence that ties the suspect to the shooting, he's going to get the death penalty, this is tragic, let's learn more about him. But you have some people with really, really big voices that are trying to spin some very different stories about what happened or why it happened. How much air is that getting in D.C.?
Inside the Beltway, I don't think it's getting a lot of air. You're going to have to. There are several different air quote conspiracy theories around this.
Yeah,
I think that a conspiracy theory that's not actually a conspiracy theory is, and one of the ones that will be treated as a conspiracy theory by the left and by liberals is that the violence is mostly coming from the right. I mean, that you're being gaslit right now as an American public into believing that conservatives are the ones who are doing this killing. And I for one, there is no one among us who is innocent. I mean, we have our own problems on our side. We have our own mass casualty situations.
Charlie Kirk was pretty quick to admit that, wasn't he?
Correct. But I do want to take a look at some of the most notable mass casualty situations over the past several years and start drawing some lines here. I just alluded to this. It's a heart problem. It's a heart posture problem. Part of that is this woke culture that encourages people to not only disagree but to dehumanize the person. I've been hit with this. Like, how do I have a real conversation with someone I disagree with when I, as a conservative, don't hate that person? I hate your ideas. I don't want you to be in power. I don't want you to be the governor of a state. I don't want you to be the president of the United States. But you're still a person, and I'm still going to treat you like a person. Where I, Richard, can tell you, after my 9 years of working for President Trump in a variety of different capacities, people, the left, looks at me and not only do they not agree with my beliefs, my principles, my arguments for whatever it is that I'm doing as a conservative, they hate me. They think that I'm the problem. I've lost friends, I've lost family members who will not talk to me. And this started from very early on when I was working with then candidate Trump. I've lost friendships and I've lost family members over this just because of a guy that I'm working for. That it's the dehumanizing of your opposition, air quote, whoever that may be, that is putting this culture in a bad situation. Now, the question then becomes, what do we do next, right? And I think that we're starting to see some of that in our culture, on social media, in places of employment, businesses, higher education. We're starting to see some of the leadership say, okay, you are more than welcome to have your opinion, and we are not going to stop you from sharing it. But when you're out there actively celebrating the death of a man who had absolutely, no bearing other than nothing he did, his only crime was talking, right? Sharing his opinion and asking others to share theirs. To see you celebrating that, that's grounds.
But he was connecting, William, and I think that was the concern of the left. Like, this guy is saying things that I disagree with and that I think are hateful because I disagree with them, and a whole bunch of people are listening to him, and a whole bunch of people who felt like they didn't have a voice for the last few years are finding their voice, and they're saying, we're not going to listen to the leftist crap anymore. We're going to fight back. We're going to stand up for what we believe in. And the thing that we believe in that was growing, to me, the most like heart-filling thing was this message of faith and the message of Jesus as Savior that people were emboldened to say in a way that I haven't seen in my lifetime.
That's exactly right. That's the scary part. So I'm a member of the Presbyterian Church, PCA. And I've got, my dad's an elder, my grandfather was an elder, and one of the things that, in the church, and one of the things that was kind of expressed to me as I was growing up, and they would take on these positions of leadership within our local churches. Mm-hmm. The more that you start doing things like this, being in more prominent positions, being in positions of leadership, whether it be in your community, whether it be in your church, wherever it's going to be, even with your own family, the more that you start taking on more responsibility and trying to do what's right, the harder you're going to get hit by the enemy. That's our ultimate enemy, right? Sin is evil. The devil is going to come at you. The harder that you go, the more that you try to be in line, the harder he's going to come at you. And I think Charlie Kirk, we saw evil happen last Wednesday. We saw the devil find somebody to carry out.
There's no question about that. No question. So, William Russell, my guest, he's a partner at Ballard Partners, has worked on the Trump campaign at the state level, at the national level. You heard him say for the last 9 years. He's going to hang with us through the break. We're going to talk about free speech when we come back. What about the decision to get rid of Jimmy Kimmel? Is this a free speech violation, or is this consequence for actions? We're back with you after this. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Good to be with you. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. William Russell is my guest. He lives in D.C. now, but he is from Mississippi. We don't have to talk about who he cheers for, but a lot of reason to be excited for you and your Bulldog brethren over the last few weeks.
Oh yeah, 3-0, baby. I was not expecting this. So this is kind of a, I shed a couple tears after that Arizona State win. Because
Did you?
My
really?
wife and I went. Oh yeah, it was the first time my wife's from Michigan, and she's a Michigan State Spartan, and so she's experienced a lot of Big Ten football. But this is the first time we were sitting in the stands, and she looked around, probably third, just beginning of the fourth quarter, and she looked at all the students and she said, "They're here?" And I was like, "Yeah, they stayed the entire game." And she was like, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." She's like, "They would have all been gone by this time at our football games." I'm like, "No, we take our football pretty seriously down here. It's kind of an intense thing."
Great student crowd last week against Alcorn State as well. I certainly tip my cap to them for that.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the ride. It certainly has been fun so far, and it's hard not to like Jeff Levy.
It is.
Freedom of speech is something that the right has championed for a really, really long time. It's, I think, a core to our society. I heard Tucker Carlson say if freedom of speech is truly curtailed, then that should be the time for civil unrest. Yeah, go figure, Tucker throwing with a flamethrower.
Yeah.
But we get this news about Jimmy Kimmel. And I argued earlier this morning that this is not a violation of his free speech, of his First Amendment rights, but rather a consequence of his actions. Because you do have freedom of speech, but you don't have freedom from consequence, especially when you affect the business interests of your employer, which is what was happening at ABC with some of its affiliate owners.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of this? Because there are a lot of people, Chuck Schumer at the top of the list, saying that he is outraged by this. And we had Van Jones on CNN say that this was crossing a red line. What do you make of all of it?
Who's crossing the red line? Is it the businesses that are crossing a red line? Because the government wasn't the one that fired Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't work for the U.S. government, and it doesn't work for the FCC. I mean, the FCC is a regulatory body, but at the end of the day, this is an ABC decision. This is Disney's decision. I would argue that this isn't even something that the federal government, they picked up on it after Nexstar was the one who said, "We're canceling Jimmy Kimmel." This is a reaction to the market is what this is. And so, yeah, I mean, you do have free speech in this country. But as we talked about in the last segment, we've seen how you're more than welcome to exercise your freedom of speech, but don't be surprised when you have repercussions for the way that you talk in a public space. That's the bottom line. And that's what we're dealing with Jimmy Kimmel. That's what we're dealing with teachers and people in places of employment, the big businesses that care about the image that they are presenting to the public. And that's, at the end of the day, again, in life, you have consequences for your actions. That has always been the way. And I think that the change that we've seen in Charlie's death is that people, and it doesn't necessarily, I'm not talking specifically conservatives, Republicans, I'm talking about people writ large who have some semblance of a moral compass, are standing up and saying, maybe that's not right. Maybe that's not what we should be saying. Maybe that's not how we should be presenting this to other Americans, to our kids who are watching us, to other countries. This isn't what America is. To mock and to make light of and to minimize a tragedy. It doesn't matter. Again, on the political spectrum, it doesn't matter who that was. It was a tragedy. It was an influencer that had an impression on millions of people around the world. and again, I go back to this dehumanizing thing, because this is, at the end of the day, what we're talking about. We're dehumanizing other people, and that's
I
exactly
agree
what
with
Jimmy Kimmel did.
I agree with all of the things that you're saying there, William. The part that is concerning for me, though, is the chair of the FCC coming out and kind of after the fact threatening Disney with potential further sanctions or further investigation. It doesn't feel to me like that is the role of the FCC.
You know, maybe not, but that is also kind of the role of the FCC. Like, if you have, let's change the scenario here, and in this scenario, nobody actually dies. It's if Jimmy Kimmel were to come on air and start espousing anti-Semitic tropes, started blasting racist epitaphs all over his show, do we think that that's not going to have a repercussion of any way? That's kind of what I'm equating these two, because these are both vile things that we're talking about. The way that he handled Charlie Kirk's death, the mockery that he made of it, and a potential of having anti-Semitic conversation or racist propaganda that he's putting up. These are things that are not going to be tolerated at the end of the day. And this is, I'm thankful that we have an executive branch that's strong enough to say, no, this isn't right. And if that means more investigations, so be it. If that means more calls for people who shouldn't be projecting this to the American public, to the public writ large, so be it. I'm okay with this, because it's not okay. And we, as moral people, need to start calling out things that are amoral. That's how we get better.
Visiting for just a couple more minutes with William Russell. He's a partner at Ballard Partners. New partner there. Congratulations on that. And former Trump chair in Mississippi and campaign advisor in Mississippi. Always enjoy the conversations. Maybe kind of putting a bow on this. There is no denying by anybody the impact that Charlie Kirk had. We visited with a high school student yesterday that told us about the impact that he had on him and his friends, and kind of the empowerment that they felt as a result of some of the message of Charlie Kirk. And so you had this giant voice that was connecting, especially with young people at the high school and the college age. How does that void get filled? Because it does feel like there's already this fight's not the right word, like this shuffling of people trying to slide in. Other right-leaning commentators that say they're going to continue to carry the mantle of Charlie Kirk. But he connected with people in a way that very few have. So what does this look like going forward in your mind?
You're asking questions. I'm a big enough man to admit when I don't know. And that's kind of where I am right now. I think part of this is there's still a grieving process. Like, we're going to have a memorial service in Arizona on Saturday. So there's still, I think, before we get to the posturing of who comes next, we still need to kind of wrestle with the reason why we are where we are today, what's going on. And my prayer, my hope is that, love them or hate them, and TPUSA has done great things, but they're not the only ones out there. There's Leadership Institute on college campuses. There's your local Republicans on college campuses that are doing great work. But to fill the void of Charlie Kirk himself, I don't really know the answer to that question, because he had this unique ability to embrace debate, especially on a pivotal place like a college campus, and really lean into that, and it not be offensive, and it be disarming, and not be rude. Like, I guess it's just the lack of a better word. That's kind of the way he was. Like, you didn't see him openly mock his questioners on a college campus. He just simply brought it down to the facts, which, if my hope, my prayer again, is that somebody rises through the ranks that is willing to have the conversation at that level and willing to go to the people the way that Charlie did, and is going to espouse the same kind of things that Charlie espoused, and also not be offensive, because it's so easy today, and we see this from influencers on social media all the way up through the top of the food chain and our political spectrum, to say offensive things, to be a gaslighter, to be a flamethrower on social media. And I think the way that Charlie kind of presented, the way that Charlie definitely presented, we need somebody like that who's willing to embrace debate and still view the person on the other side as a fellow human being, as exactly who they are. Whoever can do that, that's going to be the person that steps up, I think, and rises to the top and replaces Charlie.
William Russell, always appreciate your time. Enjoyed the conversation this morning. We'll catch up soon.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it.
Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Half an hour left with you. We will change directions coming up next when we are joined by Katie Coates. She's Director of Marketing and Communications with Visit Mississippi. Pasadena, California. That's what we're talking about when we come back.